Well, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, and it is February 24th. And interestingly enough, on February 24th, we are going to start chapter 24 of Luke's Gospel. So we're going to jump into chapter 24 today. We're going to look at verses 1 to 12. Yesterday, we wrapped up with Joseph of Arimathea taking Jesus and putting him in his tomb. And so the women saw from a distance and saw where he was at and went away to prepare spices because it was about to be sundown and the Sabbath was going to start, so they couldn't have time to get Jesus ready. But today is, for them, Sunday of Holy Week. It is the resurrection day. It is, this is the day. It's Easter Sunday for them, the first Easter Sunday. And so it is going to, they are going to go back to the tomb now is where we're at. They're on their way back there. So let's take a look at chapter 24, verses 1 to 12, and we'll talk about it as we go through it. Okay? But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and lowered or bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again." Then they remembered his words and returned from the tomb. They told all this to the 12 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping and looking in, he saw the linen clothes by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. Okay, now, of course, at the end, we have the thing about them not being able to believe the women. And sometimes we try to talk about the patriarchy of the situation. And I'm sure that some of that entered in. But also part of that is just, this is a fantastic tale. So let's go back to the beginning and work our way through. They have gone to the tomb. One has to wonder who was going. They were planning to roll the stone away. As I mentioned yesterday, those entrances were constructed in such a way that the stone rolled into a hole, basically a niche in the stone, and to try to roll that back out was very difficult. To roll it in wasn't so hard at all, but to get it back up and out of that, if you've ever tried to roll something up a small hill, in steep incline and up going, it's not easy sometimes, especially if it's a considerable weight and it's bulky. And that's what those stones would be. Again, we did get to see a couple of different tombs that still had the stones in place by them over there in Israel. Amazing to see that. Very, very, something that was very touching and dramatic and impactful, as I say. But they get to the tomb and the stone is already rolled away. Somebody's moved the stone. And they are perplexed about this. Because when they go inside, there is no body. Now, at first, there's not a mention of the linens, but Peter sees the linens at the end, and that's what church tradition, Catholic church tradition has it. That's what the Shroud of Turin is, as we talked about yesterday. I won't talk about that today, but if you want to hear more about that, go back to yesterday or Google Shroud of Turin or go on YouTube and listen to some documentaries. There's some really good documentaries on it. Anyway. And the women then have this appearance of these 2 men in dazzling clothes. Now, the interesting thing about these 2 men is, if you remember back to the Transfiguration in Luke's Gospel, that's when you have Moses and Elijah. Before they identify them as being Moses and Elijah, the words are, "There's 2 men in dazzling clothing." It's the same verbiage as you have here. Exactly the same. And interestingly enough, when Jesus ascends in the book of Acts, in Luke's second version or second volume, I guess not version but volume, in his second volume of the book of Acts, when he ascends, it's the exact same verbiage there. You have these 2 men in dazzling white. They're not identified as angels. They're 2 men in dazzling white clothes. And one commentator that I listened to speculating and pondering and wondering, and I think it's really an interesting, it's an interesting symbolism as to that at the Transfiguration we know that Moses and Elijah, it's the law and the prophets witnessing to Jesus' ministry, and here we have, if we look at this, we have the law and the prophets witnessing to Jesus' resurrection, and then again Jesus' ascension to the Father. So that's an interesting thing to think about. I've only heard one person say that. I found that quite intriguing, and it is it's impactful if you think of it that way, I think. But the main part of this whole slug of verses that we're looking at, this chunk of scripture, is found in verse 5. It's the whole profession of what we are as Christians and why we are Christians, and that's the second part. So 5b we would call it, and that is, why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. This is the whole thing. The tomb is empty. The whole thing about Easter, the whole thing about every day for us as Christians, but especially Easter, is that that's an empty tomb. The tomb that God has risen. He is not a God of the dead. He is a God of the living and the dead. But He is a living God. He's not a dead God. So this is a very important part of this, and it's not something that we can overly emphasize. Okay, we can't overdo it on that part. And in verse 6 it says, remember how He told you while He was still in Galilee, that in verse 7, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the third day rise again. Well, He told them 3 times that He was to be persecuted, twice that He would be killed, and twice that He would rise again. You find, and this is in Luke's gospel. We don't need to go to the other gospel. We're sticking in Luke's. Luke 9:22, and that He said, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and He must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. And that's from the NIV. These 3 verses, I've picked it up out of the NIV. I didn't take time to change it. So it was the default. Luke chapter 9, verse 44. Forgive me. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. Again, that's the second time He's telling them He's going to be persecuted. Luke chapter 18, verses 31 to 34. Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be delivered over to the Gentiles. They will mock Him, insult Him, and spit on Him. They will flog Him and kill Him. On the third day He will rise again. The disciples did not understand any of this. Its meaning was hidden from them, and they did not know what He was talking about. So there's in Luke's gospel, those are the predictions of what has happened now. Okay, this is what's going on now, and finally, they are starting to understand and to remember this, and that's part of what's going on with Peter, walking away amazed at what happened. We didn't believe them. Would you believe them? He's just telling you, I'm going to rise again on the third day. Okay, that sounds good, Jesus. So this is what's going on, and this is the whole thing. Again, we cannot overemphasize the fact that what this is all about, what we do here, is all about that tomb. That tomb is vitally important, and the fact that it's empty is the important part. So with that, we're going to let you go for today. Tomorrow we're going to take a walk with a couple guys and Jesus. So come on back. And so some think it's a guy and a gal. We don't know for sure. That's the debate. But at any rate, come on back tomorrow, and hopefully it'll be just as nice a morning as we have now. Right now, it's melting quite well out there. So have a blessed day, and as I always say, please be a blessing to someone today. We will see you all later. Bye-bye.